Alex Eala's victory was earned, not given. It was a Monday afternoon in Washington, D.C. For most people, it was simply the beginning of another work week. The city was moving at its usual pace. Cars passing through busy streets, office workers returning to their routines, and the nation's capital carrying on with the seriousness that often defines it. But inside the tennis stadium, something extraordinary was happening. The loudest cheers were not coming from the neighborhoods surrounding the arena. They were coming from half a world away, from the Philippines. Philippine flags fluttered proudly in the stands. Homemade banners rose above the crowd. Voices echoed through the stadium, loud, joyful, and unmistakably Filipino. "Let's go, Alex." The chant rolled across the court again and again, growing stronger with every point. Tournament officials had seen passionate crowds before. They had watched fans travel to support their favorite players. But this was different. This was a Monday final that felt more like a national celebration. The energy was so powerful that Washington briefly sounded like Manila. Even Jessica Pegula, one of the finest players in the world, could not ignore it. She had just lost the final. The fans had cheered against her from the first point until the last. And yet, in the moment of defeat, Pegula still took the time to thank them. Tournament owner Mark Ein described the atmosphere as one of the greatest Monday final crowds he had ever witnessed. And at the center of it all stood a 21-year-old Filipino athlete, holding the biggest trophy of her career. Alex Eala had become the first Filipino to win a WTA title. For many people, the easiest way to describe what happened next was to call it a Cinderella story. It sounds beautiful. It sounds dramatic. It fits neatly into the familiar language of sports. A young athlete appears from nowhere, defeats one great opponent after another, and reaches a place nobody expected her to reach. But Alex Eala's story is not a Cinderella story. Fairy tales begin with wishes. Eala's story began with discipline. It began with early mornings, lonely flights, painful losses, endless repetition, and a quiet acceptance that talent alone would never be enough. Her story began with calluses. A chance, not a guarantee. Eala was born into a family of athletes. Her parents understood competition, training, sacrifice, and the demands of a sporting life. Because of that background, she had access opportunities that many young Filipino athletes could only dream about. At the age of 13, she had the chance to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain. That opportunity was extraordinary. It gave her access to facilities, coaches, competition, and an environment designed to develop elite players. For the average Filipino athlete, such a path remains far beyond reach. But opportunity is not victory. Being given a chance to train at a world-class academy does not automatically create a champion. It does not guarantee confidence under pressure. It does not protect a young athlete from fear, injury, doubt, homesickness, or failure. Privilege can open a door. Only work can carry someone through it. Eala's background may have helped her reach the starting line, but it could not win matches for her. It could not return a 120-mile-per-hour serve. It could not save a match point. It could not calm her nerves when an opponent was serving for the set. Those moments belonged entirely to her. Every victory that followed had to be earned by the young woman who spent years away from home, learning how to compete against players who had grown up in stronger tennis systems and more established sporting cultures. While many young people her age were building ordinary memories with family and friends, Eala was building a professional life. She was traveling from country to country, adjusting to new courts, new opponents, new conditions, and new expectations. She was not simply learning how to hit a tennis ball. She was learning how to survive in a world where every opponent wanted to expose her weaknesses. And over time, she developed one of the finest return games in women's tennis. That ability did not appear overnight. It was shaped through repetition, through hours of practice, through the kind of training that rarely produces immediate applause, through matches that ended in disappointment, followed by another day of work. The world saw the trophy in Washington. It did not see every painful step that came before it, a run against champions. Eala's title run was not built on easy victories or favorable circumstances. She defeated Zheng Qinwen, an Olympic champion. She overcame defending champion Leylah Fernandez. She beat former world number 3, Elina Svitolina. She defeated former world number 1 Naomi Osaka. And in the final, She beat top-seeded world number 3 Jessica Pegula. These were not unknown names. These were athletes who had already proven themselves at the highest level of the sport. They had competed on the biggest courts, in the most important tournaments, under the brightest lights. Their presence gave Eala's achievement its true meaning. A champion is not measured only by the trophy she lifts. She is measured by the quality of the opponents she defeats and the pressure she survives along the way. Eala did not win because the stars aligned. She won because, point after point, she stood across the net from established champions and refused to be intimidated by their reputations. After the match, Osaka spoke about Eala with admiration. "She's incredible," Osaka said. "I think she's a star. And it's just really cool to have someone like her that people can look up to." Those words carried weight. Osaka is a 4-time Grand Slam champion. She knows what it means to be young, talented, watched, and expected to perform. She understands the difference between potential and greatness because she has lived through that transformation herself. When a player of Osaka's stature calls another athlete a star, it is more than a compliment. It is recognition. Pegula offered the same respect. "You're an amazing player," she told Eala, while reflecting on how much her opponent had grown since their earlier meeting. "To see how far you come over the last couple of years," Pegula said, "was something special." She also noticed a remarkable Filipino support that followed Eala wherever she competed. Then Pegula turned toward the crowd. "To all the Filipino fans that came out and have supported," she said, "you guys are still helping grow tennis around the world. We love to see that grow." It was a generous message from a player who had just lost a final. But champions recognize champions. They understand that respect does not disappear because the match ends in defeat. They know that excellence deserves to be acknowledged, especially when it comes from someone who has fought hard to earn her place. The words of Osaka and Pegula reflected something important. Eala was no longer being treated as a promising young player who might one day belong among the best. She was being recognized as someone who already belonged. A new sound in tennis. Tennis has traditionally been associated with restraint. The applause is measured. The crowd is expected to remain quiet during points. Emotion is present, but it is often carefully controlled. Then came the Filipino fans. They brought a different kind of energy. They cheered with their whole hearts. They reacted to every rally. They celebrated every winner and encouraged Eala through every difficult moment. Their voices rose above the traditional quietness of the sport. Philippine flags began appearing in the stands at tournaments around the world, from Wimbledon to Miami and Washington. Homemade banners became part of the scenery. Chants broke through the silence between serves. For years, Filipinos traveled overseas to witness greatness on the tennis court. They went to see famous champions, legendary names, and athletes from countries with long-established tennis traditions. Now, they travel with a different expectation. They travel expecting one of their own to create greatness. That shift is bigger than a single title. It represents a change in how Filipino sports fans see themselves and their athletes. The Philippines has always produced competitors capable of reaching extraordinary heights. But too often, those athletes have had to build their paths almost alone. Manny Pacquiao earned global respect with his fists before he became a national icon. Hidilyn Diaz pursued an Olympic dream through years of sacrifice, supported by family, coaches, and private benefactors when the system could not fully carry her. Carlos Yulo crossed seas to train in Japan because the opportunities he needed were not readily available at home. Their stories are inspiring. But inspiration should not prevent us from asking difficult questions. Why must so many Filipino athletes succeed despite the system instead of because of it? Why do our champions so often have to leave the country to find the coaching, facilities, competition, and support necessary to compete internationally? Why does recognition frequently come only after the world has already acknowledged them? These are not questions meant to diminish their achievements. They make those achievements even more powerful. An athlete who succeeds despite obstacles deserves admiration. But nations should also examine the obstacles themselves. The price of paving the way. Eala has spoken about growing up without anyone from the Philippines to pave the way for her. She understood that the path she wanted to take was not already prepared. There were no clear instructions, no established tradition, and no guarantee that the country would know how to support a player trying to reach the highest levels of professional tennis. So she trained abroad. She left home young. She entered an unfamiliar world. She carried not only her racket and equipment, but also the hopes of a country that had never before seen one of its own win a WTA title. That responsibility can be heavy. Young athletes are often told to enjoy the journey, but the journey is not always enjoyable. Sometimes it means missing birthdays. Sometimes it means facing defeat far away from home. Sometimes it means waking up after a painful loss and return to the court before the disappointment has fully disappeared. The public usually sees the celebration. The athlete remembers the sacrifice. And yet, in the middle of her greatest triumph, Eala was not speaking only about herself. She was already thinking about the children who would come after her. "I hope this inspires people in the Philippines to pick up a tennis racket," she said. That sentence reveals the depth of her victory. She did not want her achievement to remain a beautiful, isolated moment. She wanted it to become an invitation, a signal to young Filipinos that tennis could belong to them too. Somewhere in the Philippines, a child may have watched Eala lift that trophy. Maybe that child had never imagined becoming a professional athlete. Maybe tennis had always seemed like a sport reserved for wealthier countries, private clubs, or families with resources. But now, that child has seen a Filipino woman defeat the best players in the world. And sometimes, seeing someone like yourself succeed is the first step toward believing that you can try. Recognition must become responsibility. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. applauded Eala and pledged the government's support. That recognition is expected when an athlete achieves something historic. Public officials naturally celebrate the victory. The achievement becomes a source of national pride, and the champion is praised as a symbol of Filipino excellence. But the more important question is, what happens after the applause? Will support remain focused only on athletes who have already conquered the international stage? Or will it reach the girls and boys whose names nobody knows yet? The government has often been criticized for discovering athletes only after the rest of the world has already noticed them. By the time national recognition arrives, many of the hardest years have already been carried by families, coaches, sponsors, and the athletes themselves. The medals become national achievements. The sacrifices, however, are often private. If Eala's victory is truly going to change Philippine tennis, then her success must lead to something more lasting than ceremonies and congratulatory statements. It must lead to access. It must lead to better facilities, stronger grassroots programs, improved coaching, more competitive opportunities, and a clear pathway for young athletes who do not come from privileged backgrounds. It must create a system where talent is discovered early and supported consistently. A child should not need extraordinary luck to find the opportunity that Eala received. A promising athlete should not be forced to depend entirely on family resources or private generosity. The next champion should not have to overcome the same barriers simply to reach the starting line. Eala's journey is inspiring because she overcame those obstacles. But the goal should be to make those obstacles less common, not a fairy tale. No, Alex Eala's story is not a fairy tale. Fairy tales celebrate the chosen. Eala's story celebrates the earned. She did not wake up one morning and discover that greatness had been placed in her hands. She built it through years of training, competition, travel, pressure, failure, and persistence. Her family may have helped her find a road, but she had to walk it. Her academy may have provided world-class facilities, but she had to endure the work. Her coaches may have offered guidance, but she had to make the difficult decisions under pressure. Her fans may have filled the stadium with noise, but she had to stand alone on the court when the match became tight. That is the truth of tennis. There is nowhere to hide. No teammate can take the next point for you. No crowd can return the serve. No reputation can protect you when the ball lands inside the line. In the final, Eala had to face one of the best players in the world. She had to manage the weight of history, the expectations of Filipino fans, and the knowledge that the biggest victory of her career was within reach. The moment demanded courage. She delivered it. And when the final point ended, the trophy did not represent luck. It represented every hour that had come before it, every lonely journey, every difficult loss, every return practiced until the movement became instinct. Every time she continued when stopping would have been easier. The work begins tomorrow. Today, the Philippines celebrates Alex Eala. The flags, the chants, the headlines, and congratulations are all deserved. But tomorrow, the real work begins. The question is no longer whether a Filipino can win a WTA title. Alex Eala has already answered that question. The question is whether her victory can help build a country where more Filipino athletes have the opportunity to pursue excellence without having to fight through unnecessary barriers. Somewhere in the Philippines, another girl is picking up a racket because she saw Eala play. She may be young. She may be uncertain. She may not yet know where tennis can take her. Perhaps she is practicing on a cracked court. Perhaps she is using equipment that is not ideal. Perhaps her family cannot afford the kind of training that professional tennis demands. But she has seen a possibility. She has seen a Filipina compete fearlessly against the world's best. Whether she follows the same path should depend on her talent, sacrifice, discipline, and perseverance, not simply on whether she is fortunate enough to overcome the same obstacles that stood in Eala's way. That is the responsibility of a historic victory. It must inspire, but it must also challenge. It must make people proud, but it must also make institutions accountable. It must celebrate the champion while remembering the countless young athletes still waiting for a chance. Alex Eala has opened a door that did not exist before. Now the Philippines must decide whether that door will remain open only for the rare athlete strong enough to force her way through, or whether it will become a true pathway for the generation that follows. Because Eala's story should not remain an exception. It should become a beginning. A beginning for Filipino tennis. A beginning for young athletes who dare to dream beyond what their circumstances seem to allow. And a beginning for a country learning that its champions should not have to succeed alone. Today, we salute Alex Eala. Tomorrow, we build a world that makes her journey a little less impossible and her story a little less exceptional.